Hi, everyone. I'm here with my friend Chad Davis again. It's actually my internet friend, Chad Davis. We actually haven't met yet, and we have a online relationship. At some point, we hope to meet each other.
This is where I
And
interject and say, Hector, we've met like four times at conferences together. You
oh
just
crap,
put your foot in your mouth. This is that weird feeling where you're more of a celebrity and I'm just this little plebe who like walks around hoping to talk to Hector. But
I
we
am
have
so
met,
sorry.
we have shaked, we have hugged, we've sat at the same
I am
table.
so sorry.
You suck so bad.
I don't know. I For some reason I thought that we were just internet friends, but that's good. Okay, fine. But we haven't had like a drink. We haven't had like a drink together
I
and
am
like or a
very
meal together.
forgettable in person, so I
Okay.
totally get it.
Okay. All right. Anyway, scratch that. Editor.
No
Scratch that.
editor. You keep that in,
We don't have an
editor.
editor. That was a joke. That was a joke. We don't have an editor. So Chad Davis is a firm owner. He has a firm called Life CA in Canada. I've seen team pictures. You have about what 20, 25 employees?
Those team pictures are probably 10 years old because we're
Oh.
remote and we have not like gotten together as a group
Oh wow.
in a really long time. It was really expensive. Fun fact, I think the last one we did was like 120 grand when there was like 50 people. And then we just recognized that like having smaller groups was a little bit better over time. And now just because of COVID and like other things, we just haven't gotten back into that groove of getting everybody together. But it is
So how many people?
expensive when you
How
have
many
like,
people in
I
your
mean,
firm?
over the years we've been up over 100
Wow.
and now it's 60 people. So
Awesome.
even getting 60 people together, you have to do logistics of families and commitments and
It's a
timings.
lot.
It's a lot of stuff. So we would rather put that money back into salaries right now
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
than big
Sure.
events.
Sure. Awesome. Well, so you got, between 80 and 100 people in your firm
Oh no, 60 today.
in the
60
highest
today.
peak. Yeah, in the highest peak, and
Yeah.
now about 60, 100% remote, or for the most part
Nope,
remote.
100% remote, never had an office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you do tax and accounting, or
Yep.
just tax, or
Bookkeeping, AP, payroll, controllership, that kind of stuff,
yeah.
tax. Yeah.
And
Just no
only Canadian companies, or you do sort of worldwide?
So we have a bunch of like really prominent US companies that come to Canada and they
Mm.
need Canadian tax, back office stuff that's using all the tools that their smart accounting friends use in the US.
Yeah.
So we're typically that firm for them that come up and need some presence and some Canadian stuff. Yeah, that's it. So we just don't do CFO, which is a whole other discussion to have, but
Yeah.
not on the automation update, which is what we're here for.
Correct. Yeah. So thank you for giving us that background. Just out of curiosity, are you mostly zero or a mixture between zero and QuickBooks?
Mixture of zero and QuickBooks. But again, we had been zero 100% up until 2023.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you moving upstream a little bit with mid-market, working with any of the mid-market BRP software?
We have only, I think, with one client on Campfire, but nothing else above. But again, one of the client profiles we have, like, we only work with businesses with over like $1.5 million in revenue.
Yeah.
So again, we don't do personal tax except for the owners of those businesses. It's all business clients. So those businesses get bigger, but typically we just don't have an enterprise division. You know who does? Chris Williams at System 6.
Okay.
He just recently set up an entire enterprise division inside of his company to do mid-market stuff outside
Yeah.
of Xero and QuickBooks. I think that's super smart.
We should arrange maybe a call and kind of see what he's up to.
Oh, he's having fun with that.
Love it. So I bring Chad Davis in because on top of being a firm owner and a person that we've met many times and I forget about it and all that stuff, he's also very, very tech forward. He founded a really awesome community called Automation Town. I think I was one of the first members. The minute he announced it, I'm like, oh, this looks super cool. And you have like up to 300 people, 300 plus people in
Getting
there.
up towards 400 now. Yeah.
Amazing. And every week or so, there's new content of people sharing their perspective, their sort of trials and tribulations into automating their accounting firms. And I really, really like a new sort of weekly thing that you guys are doing which is called the live builds. And we're going to talk about all the technical stuff that's going on in the last quarter of automation, ChatGPT, AI, all that stuff, because we met a quarter ago to kind of discuss that. It's the first time, if you follow my channel, that you've seen me talk to Chad. But Chad, give us a Reader's Digest version of like the live builds, because I'm very excited about that.
Oh, this is really fun. So every week or so, we have an event where you can come with your issue or your thing that you'd like to build. and we sort of like vote on it in the group, and then from there the group will build it. There'll be one person leading it. Could be like an agency owner who builds automations for accountants only. Could be me, could be somebody else. um, Byron Patrick does a lot of the stuff in there too. Like there's a lot of great people that are in there helping each other out, and we'll just build it. And it's so cool to be able to see somebody say, "Oh, I didn't know I could create folders after after an ignition proposal is created, and it can check whether or not it's there or not, or if it's a new client, and you just build it, and within 30 minutes, this person now has a great automation ready to go." That's what gives people legs and inspiration. And it can be simple, it can be complex, but I think that's a really cool part of the community.
Could we discuss like a tangible example of like something very common that an accounting firm has to do manually that they could bring a couple of SaaS products in maybe a couple of hours of work and build an automation that could save them hours?
I mean, that was the simplest one. Like, give me even simpler, right? A new ignition proposal is accepted. Check to see whether it's a new client or not. If it's a new client, set up all of the folders, the CRM information in other systems, the templated folder structures, blah, 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 and then save a copy of the ignition proposal in that new folder. If it's an existing client, either see if this year's folder is there or not. If it is, throw the file there. If it's not, create the file, create the folder, and then save it. Like just really simple stuff like that is helping people not have to do that manual drag and drop every time something happens. And when you can layer on 10, 15 of those in the first year of your like automation journey, your mind will start exploding on like what you could actually do with, and maybe like an agency or a tech person in your firm. You talk about this all the time, but starting small and seeing little wins like that really helps people's mind recognize that the repeatable, logical things probably should be automated.
And just to draw a connection on exactly what's happening is we have multiple data. This happens when you have multiple databases. If you have a single piece of software that's pre-designed to do all that, then good. But most software doesn't adapt to the firm. The firm could have its own workflows, or the client base could have its own preferences. So we end up having multiple databases. Like you mentioned, Ignition, that's a database, right? A database of proposals. And you mentioned, is it an existing client or a new client? Well, that could be a separate database. So that could be your QuickBooks database of clients. And then you talked about, does a folder exist? Do we need to create a folder so people can dump documents in there? Well, that could be, Box or Smart Vault or whatever system you use to pick up documents. And the concepts here are, hey, we don't want to change to a single software provider that's promising to do everything. We like everything that we have at the moment. What we want to do is we want to kind of like do, as Doug Leaders used to say, digital plumbing. That way, when one thing gets done or completed, a bunch of things trigger along the way. And we use tools like Zapier, Make, N88, that sort of thing, correct?
N8N, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so let's go into like AI news. That's the title of the video will be something like AI news. so let's get right to that.
Quarterly update.
Quarterly update to AI news. So I'll start. ChatGPT came up with a downloadable version of their language model called GPT OSS. This is not new. Meta has this quasi open source model called Llama. It's not open source, but it could be used by multiple people to create specific purpose chatbots and LLMs. And it's not new that you can download and work locally in your computer. But what's a kind of a big deal is the fact that you got the household name GPT behind this. And for the first time, it's a completely free version, distilled version of the main GPT-5 model in downloadable form. So I'd like to ask you what experience you have with downloadable LLMs.
I think it's cool. I've tried to do really smaller versions over the years because that's what my computer could handle. But I think what most people will try is like they'll say, "Oh, this smaller version of OSS, I'll just throw that on my computer." Well, if you don't have the right amount of virtual RAM that you need to process it, you just like ruined your computer, right? It's just gonna sit there like a brick and not do anything really well. And this is where there's a huge difference right now between like really great on-premise models and the size of them. Because when the size is too big and that's what you need, that's what you're used to, that's what you set your opinions on, well, you're not going to use a really tiny small model locally unless it's for a very specific use case. So these general purpose OSS ones, which are big from both versions, are kind of too big to put on. Even the smaller one, you could probably put it on a pretty good Mac Mini or like a little M4 or something like that. But even with a great one, like, do you really want to put all those resources under there? I don't know. You'd have to have a really good reason to. And for me personally, I'm not into that whole I need this to sit on my computer in order to process something when I'm okay with the security that exists in the tools that I'm using already. But I can totally see how some people might require it because that's where their head's at. That's where they think about security. That's where they feel comfortable. Some people feel comfortable putting stickies of their passwords on their computer. Doesn't mean it's the right thing, right?
I want to disagree with you a little bit, and I don't mean directionally. I just mean I think that firms are clamoring, and when I say firms, I'm referring to accounting firms, but I would say firms that manage sensitive information in general. They're clamoring for really, really secure and private AI. And the challenge with like OpenAI with ChatGPT, which yes, they have the business team version that is SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, and they have the enterprise version that's even higher security and now affordable. By the way, I think now you can have small firms of 15 people
Five
have
zero.
enterprise. Oh, 550. Okay, but that's
Yep.
still, I mean, it used to be 150. So you can get the team version with at least 2 team members or the enterprise version with 50, and you have top-notch security. But security is not the same thing as privacy. And I think one of the challenges, and I think accountants know this better than most professionals, because when I teach ChatGPT and I teach it, to accountants, I teach it to business owners, I teach it to many people. It's interesting, like the business owners in the live webinars, the type of questions and concerns they have are completely different than the accountants. The accountants are always asking, well, how can I make sure that the bank statement I uploaded is private, nobody else can look at it? How can I make sure that what I do there won't be held against me in court if it gets subpoenaed? How can I make sure that if I upload W-2s and 1099s, these are U.S. tax forms. I'm sure you've heard of them
All
before.
good.
Yeah, and I want them to process it and create like a mock tax return. How do I make sure the data I'm putting up there is safe, right? And being concerned with safety is half the reason. The other reason is, should I be disclosing to my client that I'm uploading, their documents, their sensitive information into a black hole, and accountants don't want to have a brand new conversation with their clients with a long-term relationship about how they're managing their documents. So I think that accounting firms that have that's their main concern, they would feel a little bit safer saying, oh, this is like my desktop tax software where everything that I put in there stays in that computer, it doesn't leave. So I agree that computer power is a challenge. Like I have a $6,000 Mac Studio that I bought last year, and I try to download the GPT OSS, the 120 billion model, which is the one that's mostly mimics the power of GPT-5. And one query took like 7 minutes, and I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. It's just, so, and then I was reading the specs, and it said that it was designed for the NVIDIA H900 chip or whatever, which the chip itself is $30,000. So obviously, I don't even have the computing power. But if you imagine a firm that could afford a $30,000 computer, a $40,000 computer in exchange for one headcount or half a headcount or whatever, and have permanent AI all powered for everybody in the firm, I think the value proposition is there. So I know that it will be, the challenge is that it will become obsolete within 2 months. And that's probably the biggest problem. But I think that firms are clamoring for on-premise or at least maybe they don't even understand what that means, but I think that once it's presented to them, they would buy it. So like that's my side. I don't know if you have something a response to that.
I do, but this is your podcast. You're a YouTube. Um,
No, I
my, my
want you. I want you to challenge my thinking on this.
sure. Um, Show me the firms that have spent the hundreds of millions of dollars so far on their on-premise stuff that's actually like working really, really well.
Correct. There's none.
You really can't.
Yeah.
Show me the people that would rather would have a preference for this stuff on premise versus in a browser. People won't care.
Agree.
It's the security side, it's the IT departments, it's the ones that have a vested interest in protecting their jobs to do this right. And to a degree, of course, that's the public interest. But when I'm thinking about this, I think of it through the lens of not the public accounting firm that's the billion-dollar company that has they play in a different arena. I'm talking about like our firms, the ones that
Small
have
business. Yeah.
under 100 employees, like
Yeah.
they're there. Because things are moving so fast. I mean, we're going to talk about agents here in a second, but again, not the greatest right now, right? And it'll only become a matter of time before that fundamentally changes because we knew that 2025 was going to have something to do with agents. We didn't know what it would be like. We're already in August and no one's like, my agent is my best friend. My agent, well, some people are, but they're like, this has changed my business.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're like, I'm playing, I'm doing small things, I'm educating myself around how agents work so that when they do live up to the hype, I'm kind of ready. I've got my mental headspace there, I'm good. And this on-premise versus web-based stuff, I still think like August 2025, we're in this place where getting people to get excited to use it to make their work more enjoyable is the goal and not necessarily the privacy piece. Every time the privacy piece has been invested in incredibly, the payoffs I don't think are there. Maybe we don't see it, but that's my only opinion. We have a little bit of a different one, but
Yep.
maybe we're both right.
Okay. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I like the fact. I don't know if you remember this case, Chad, but there was a school shooting like 5 years ago, maybe before COVID, and they have the phone of the school shooter. They had the iPhone of the school shooter, and the U.S. government wanted to access the data because they can know, where they got the gun from, or maybe if he's chatting with other school shooters. They have a legitimate reason to access the phone, and they went to Apple and say, hack this phone for you, and Apple said no. They said we stand for privacy. And there's no, I mean, there has to be some sort of correlation to why Apple is such a powerful company, such a powerful business, because they stand by privacy. And that's all I want to say, that your privacy is becoming a slippery slope right now. And I think society is little by little being gaslighted into relinquishing privacy in exchange of convenience. And what you are proposing, which is, show me a firm that has done this, or let's make it more enjoyable, it's on the side of the convenience side. And I don't know of an accounting firm that has audited, ChatGPT yet. So people tell me, Hector, can you guarantee me that ChatGPT is secure? I'm like, I haven't audited, so I can't guarantee it. And is there such thing as a real guarantee anyway? So I think that's kind of the challenge. But you talked about agents, and I think that's a good segue to talk about. So
Before you do that,
yeah, go ahead.
that case was in 2015, and
Yeah.
they ended up getting into the phone.
But Apple didn't allow it.
No,
Right.
they found a third party way to get in.
Yes,
So,
I know. But Apple, I'm just saying, as a brand, Apple stood by their privacy policy.
yeah.
But good add-on though. I forgot about that. You're right. So agencies, okay, or agents. Sorry. So the word agent has been thrown around by many software companies, and I feel as a disservice to adoption because they're using it way too early. I mean, it's a really cool word, right? It's anthropomorphized. I forgot what that word is. The one where we take an inanimate object and we give it human traits. Anthropomorphized. Okay, whatever the word is. Okay. So we gave computer software that can do or promise to do multiple things, the word agent or agency because they sort of make decisions on their own. And that sounds great. It sounds like something I want the software to do, like go reconcile this bank and decide if you delete something or not on your own. And here's the parameters. Like we want this, right? But the execution hasn't worked. You know, what have you been seeing with agents?
Word is anthropomorphism.
That one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anthropomorphism.
Yeah.
What have I been
Did you?
seeing? I mean, I love playing with agents, honestly. But I don't trust them. And the reason I don't trust them is because I understand kind of where some of the guardrails are. And like my favorite company to follow for agents is not like a big fancy cursor like thing like this that are just going nuts with their agents. It's Zapier. And the reason is because they're leaning into this trend, which we're going to see amplified around the humanness of AI adoption, right? This is going to be the trend for probably the next year.
Yep.
And it's going to be so that people can feel better about using the tools. Meanwhile, in the UK today, they announced that they got rid of, or they let go all their secretaries. And all the partner secretaries are now working out of India versus in the UK. And it's like a stark reality that these agents, if you do have a sort of human approach to it, you should have human results. The end result shouldn't be just like slashing all the jobs. And what Zapier is doing is like they're empowering all of their team members to do this. And it's like it's their company mission to make every employee build agents, build automations, know exactly how it works. And it's one of the coolest stories that you'll see around company adoption. And their development of agents, like it's not the best agent in the world, but it is so helpful because they've made it easy to use, and it can be helpful. Like it can actually do something. Watch these things and do something with it. The idea of like agents and overusing the words, yeah, of course. Like you see 90% of all the apps out there that say they're using agents when really they're using a workflow or an automation. And okay, cool. I don't get like lost in that definition very much because I just want it to be helpful. So like
Right.
I saw something online the other day where a friend posted that his client got to use Ramp for the first time in a really long time. And he uploaded a bill, everything was happening, and it just happened. Like it extracted everything fine, AI got it perfectly right and categorized it perfectly, and then they paid the bill like 1 minute later. And I was like, oh, like that's the application of AI that is helpful. And I don't care if it's machine learning or an agent or AI workflow or whatever behind the scenes. I just want it to work. And unfortunately, like a lot of the agent stuff that people are talking about is like redesigning a whole process. And really the value is in the minuscule process. It's in
Yeah.
like oh, I just finished that meeting. I want all of that stuff to go through a process that the agent can deal with and give me something that I can start my work with. And like, that's cool. That's a good use case for an agent. And then eventually, the second stage will get ready to be automated, and then the third, and then the fourth. But we still have to be involved a little bit. And again, I see a lot of agents that accountants are building. And trivial is the word of the day right now. Helpful, maybe 10%, but like 90% of them are just like learning, watching folders, watching emails, getting sentiment, drafting things, processing transcripts, like that kind of stuff. But it's going to change really fast as soon as we see the tools around tax prep get involved and the
Yeah.
document selection. And you got companies like Content Snare already using AI to create requests for people, which is saving them so much time when they're setting up a new client. Like it's just the Wild West right now with how it's being used, but I'm very excited to see what the next kind of 6 months looks like.
Okay. So let's talk about an unhelpful agent versus a helpful agent. So I like to discuss the flagship AI product, which is ChatGPT, which last month released this concept of agent, which basically it was the same thing as something else that we're calling Operator, which was only available in the $200 a month pro edition. Now agents, I believe, are available starting the $20 a month edition, or maybe even one free agent on the free edition. I don't remember what the where it's included, but anyway. So agent was a combination of Operator and deep research. Okay, and deep research basically goes to the web, reads past first page of Google, goes a little bit deeper, compares and contrasts, and it sort of writes almost like a dissertation on whatever topic you told it to write. And the Operator it opened up a virtual browser that's in a virtual server somewhere in the OpenAI world. And that virtual browser can do things, can click on things on the page, and not just read them, but it can click on things on the page, watch the behavior of the clicking things, and then go to the next clicky thing and the next clicky thing. So in theory, you could tell it, go to QuickBooks, reconcile. Here's a PDF statement of June's credit card, and log into QuickBooks, go to reconcile it, and then send me a report back of anything that wasn't uncleared, and email it to me or whatever, or send it to me via ChatGPT notifications. Okay, so you could do that, and we start doing that, and I started recording, and I stopped recording maybe like 8 times, just trying to get it done, without doing a disservice to the audience by editing all the painful pieces. And there's just way too many painful pieces. So painful piece number 1 is you have to log in. So okay, so I gotta log in. So it just takes so many steps to log in first. And unless I give it the password, I'm not gonna do that, okay? Because of the whole security and privacy thing that we talked about. Painful process number 2, it doesn't know the workflow. Like you said, like when the workflow is already this designed, and you already know what are the 3 things of the sequence things you have to click on. That's already pre-done. Like that's how we train our employees. We say, hey, click here, click here, click here. We take a screenshot, put notes. It's very, very easy. This thing has to click on random things to see if it arrived to whatever it needed to arrive. So you see a click on reports, and okay, that's not where you reconcile. You see a click on banking, and you're like, that's not where you reconcile. It just clicks to like 8 different things. Sometimes we'll get stuck, and I'll be like, I don't know, I can't find the reconcile thing. And you have to go in, you have to intervene and say, okay, it's here, it's here, it's here. Okay, and then you leave, and then you let it do its thing, and then it gets stuck because it doesn't know how to click on a checkbox. Like it assumes that the checkbox on the left has something to do with the checkbox on the right, so then it just gets stuck there and presses buttons or presses enter, and the screen closes and it doesn't understand what's happening. So it's just extremely painful. And if you go back and go, you know what, I know how to figure this out. I'm gonna write down the entire process and tell it what screen it is, and then I'm gonna have it do it again. The problem is, by the time you did all that, you could have done it yourself. And it is almost the same challenge that we have as business owners, training employees and not wanting to delegate because it feels like it takes longer to teach them how to do it than just doing it ourselves. And so I'm getting the same level of frustration with the agents as I had with a brand new employee, and I can't see past that. So that's a huge challenge for me. The other piece is I kind of wish that this concept of having it control the browser happened in my physical local browser, right? That way I'm not looking at this tiny screen through it and trying to figure out what it's doing. I prefer that it's controlling my computer. You see the OpenAI commercials when agents came out. Someone was opening a laptop, doing something, and always closing the laptop and going to have coffee and come back, as if that's how work works, right? Like we don't have coffee 18 times a day on every single task that we give agents. So I just feel that this, like what OpenAI released as agents is super unhelpful and fine. Okay, they're not an accounting software company, but QuickBooks is an accounting software company, and they immediately responded by releasing 4 agents: the customer agent, the payments agent, and the whatever agent, and the accounting agent, which, by the way, sidebar, QuickBooks calling anything an accounting agent is such a slap in the face to the accounting community, and sidebar, okay? But all these little agents, they seem to do like very simple things, and none of it is like, here, go solve a big problem for me. So that's my rant about unhelpful agents. I would love to for you to respond to that, and then maybe talk to the audience about how can we build actual helpful agents.
The easiest way to build a helpful agent is to give it as much context as you can. So in the developer world, they have these agents.md files, these markdown files, MD. And when you can provide that alongside with an instruction, you immediately 10x that capability. So the easiest way to do that right now inside of ChatGPT with the agents is like create a project and then drop in the MD file as the knowledge. And that can be as long as you want. And that agent file will essentially have all the standard operating procedures you have, right? It could include passwords. I wouldn't do it that way. But
Right.
it could say, here's what I do first, here's what I do second, here's when you reach out to me, here's what you do in this circumstance, here's how you approach a problem in a hierarchical way. And then you let it go. And that's what I kind of love about projects in ChatGPT is that it is confined, right, to that knowledge, that instruction, to that process. And if you've turned on memory inside of ChatGPT projects, which is pretty new, which I know you want to talk about as well, like it is only going to get smarter. So it's kind of cool. Like again, but we look at AI through this lens of like, is it ChatGPT or not? And it's like, it's weird because you said something really great, which is I just want my browser to do it. And there's two pretty popular browsers right now in like the techie community with Comet and Dia, and with Comet through Perplexity, like they're hoping to add for a $5 subscription the ability for you to have agents in your browsers.
Right.
Now, it's like it's novel right now, but like it'll get there eventually. Kind of
Yes.
like how Microsoft Copilot is, we've been saying for 3 years or 2 years, it'll get there eventually. And like just now, in the middle of August, they started releasing some features that are even on par with ChatGPT. So that's why I keep coming back to education, to just playing around, getting your muscles used to change and thinking differently about how to do work. And it's like my favorite example is that you start small and you get really good at that something small, because it's really hard to get really good at something small, and it's a lot harder than you think it is. So even just that example we gave for continuity in the very beginning about the folders. Oh, well, what about checking names? What about using ID numbers for clients across different things? Oh, where do I store centralized client data? Oh, crap, I have a CRM. What should I update? Oh, shoot. I also have emails that I need to send, and they have two different contacts. Who gets a copy of the proposal? So you're just like, you keep going down this rabbit hole of logic, and you realize that this one thing about a proposal to a folder is actually 19 steps deep and has so much logic, and you've learned more about your own company's
Right.
downfalls
Right.
than you thought. I think that's the win. And the reason I say it is because I was on a call once with someone inside of Automation Town, and they said, "Oh, I need to serialize my meeting IDs. I can't use words. I need ID numbers in order to run these automations." That solves everything. And like as soon as you start building these simple automations, you create better SOPs, better ways of working, and like that actually changes your brain chemistry a little bit about how you run your firm. What do you think?
Yeah. So yeah, no, what I think the sort of the big brain moment from what you said there is, regardless of how successful the automation is at the end, the exercise of going through the design of the workflow for the automation to work typically teaches you more about yourself, your firm, your philosophy, your team than anything else, regardless of what the technology does. And this is parallel to even using ChatGPT for brainstorming. I think the technology is really not the important piece. The important piece is what the human is doing with the technology. So whether in summer 2025 these automations can work 100%, starting the process of trying to build the automations themselves are going to be a huge aha moment. And no matter how quick technology works, humans have to grow with it, and they have to grow. And you said the word logic. Like logic it's both a human word and a sort of AI computer workflow word, right? So the logic, like when you give computer logic, what you're doing is you're telling it what the human wants. That's what logic means, right? What the human wants, because a computers can crunch numbers in any dimensions you can think of, and just uselessly and pointlessly. The logic is in what order you want it to do things. And if you don't have your logic straight, the computers, the AI is never going to have it straight. But I wanted to ask you sort of a side question about, because you mentioned the MD file with the custom instructions. And just in case people were really interested in that, this is just like a Word file, right? Like it's not necessarily some coded file. It's just a Word file that looks just like a knowledge base article that says, hey, to record a bounce check, first go to check, go to this, void the check. Like it's actually the same type of instructions you would print and give it to an employee, correct?
Yeah, Markdown is just a fancy. Some people will remember RTF files, like rich text format.
Yeah.
Just another version of that. Markdown is just a cleaner RTF. I mean, now I should check myself. Is MD a cleaner RTF? Let's see what it says.
And worst case scenario, you can grab a doc file, put it in ChatGPT, and say convert this to Markdown, right? So like that's not complicated.
Exactly.
Right?
So it says here, yes, in the context of the evolution of text files over the last few decades, an MD file is generally considered a cleaner and more future-proof format than RTF. Think of it as the second generation of an RTF file.
Right. So it's a PDF that's more of a text file than an image, pretty much.
It's all text. Yes, it's text.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way we build useful agents is to teach it with, or not teach it, so to speak, because teaching and machine learning is a whole different concept, but it's to create the guardrails and the system and process in which they have to follow. Now, one thing I found, and you probably found this too, especially when you go out and you read knowledge base articles of QuickBooks, Excel, whatever. Usually they're behind on those things, right? Like they'll change the software and then the menu structure changes, right? So where AI is supposed to catch up is, hey, you give it very specific instructions, but they change the menu or they change the location or the nomenclature of the menus. And AI is supposed to sort of figure that out, like read between the lines. So at what point do you tell AI, no, follow the specific instructions that I gave you? Or kind of like give yourself a little bit allowance to do the same thing a human would, where it says to press bold, but there's no bold button, but there's a black button, and you're like, okay, well, black is kind of bold, so maybe I should press that. Like at what point we insert giving AI agency, so to speak, to go a little bit off script, so to speak.
I don't have an answer for you, but I have a experience. And that is, if you start building agents, it might work in the beginning, but then you have to monitor it, and you have to watch how people use it, and you have to look at what the outputs are. And I think they call these like evaluations. And without somebody constantly reviewing these evaluations and making sure that things are working, I would never trust these agents, even if you told it to do something. So there's an acceptable range, there's an output that's acceptable, and there's people that have full-time jobs or agents that have jobs of making sure that these evaluations are actually working out well. And if you get better over time and notice that the agents are doing things you don't want them to do, it's typically all because of your prompt, or it's because of your MD files, or it's because something's missing. So these are only ever going to get better, which is why I remember having a conversation with you once where you said, like, okay, agents, you just shut your laptop and you go. Like, no, like I want to watch what these things are doing right now. I don't trust them that much. I want to improve my prompts to make the agent more efficient, because right now they're slow as heck and they make tons of mistakes, and it is so much faster to do things by yourself most of the time. And even some of the examples people are using about great agent use, it's like, I'd actually rather just throw it into ChatGPT with a screenshot and get this dealt with. I don't want it to co-build with me this spreadsheet, because, man, it's really slow. Like I just spent 45 minutes doing something I could do in 5 if I did it this way.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that comment is funny because that was one of the most liked comments the first time I did Operator. There was like a 45-minute video showing you how to like pull a report. And the comment was, great, it took you 45 minutes to do something that takes 2 minutes to do. Again, I'm trying to illustrate what this thing can do, and then just imagine you automate these things and leave them in the background and things get done with you automatically, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of said a side comment in one of those videos, and I wanted to bring it up to you if you haven't heard this before. But designers of websites or web-based database systems, right? Designers of QuickBooks and Xero and Ignition, when they design for humans, right? The shape of the button, the reaction of the menus, the animation between the menus, the titling of the menus, they use human logic. They say, okay, like a human would understand a workflow if it's organized this way. And they do extensive A/B testing. QuickBooks does that all the time. They're infamous for changing screens of people randomly just to see if people will press on this button more than this button, if it's red or blue or on the right or the left. Okay, so designers spend a lot of time and spend decades on building software and hardware and, quite frankly, everything we interact with in the world to be friendly towards human logic. Well, are we going to have a new trend where software is designed for AI agents, or maybe in parallel? Like, imagine a website having two versions of it. The version that if it's a human using it, and a version that detects that an automated browser or an agent is working on it, and it sort of changes, and imagine like the Matrix, right? Like it turns it into zeros and ones, and then the computer knows how to find stuff. What are your thoughts about like that becoming a new trend of like design for websites?
Yeah, I mean, they've been talking about this ever since AI was kind of more mainstream. I think some of the terms they use are like machine to machine. It's like, okay, what does a machine to machine look like? Is that in English? Is that in numbers? Like,
Right.
I don't know. I think that's what the smart people are paid lots of money to go figure out and do. But I think it only makes sense that the evolution of an interface changes as the technology changes around how we use it. And you hear really smart people that write essays for a living and have billion-dollar theses around what's going to happen, that they're the way that we interact around a web tool is either going to be ephemeral, it's going to be by the computers to the computers, there's going to be a view for us, a view for the computers. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I just know right now that I want to create a great place for our team to be able to support their families and
Yep.
support their customers. And like, it means doing what you say you're going to do on time at a reasonable price so that people can keep on going with their own businesses. And I don't like to live in like the la la land too much around like what could be. It really just has to come back to how can I have a better conversation with my client or give them a great experience. And to me, like, there's five more things that are more important than the tech, but you can't ignore the tech. So there's a really weird way of like coming back full circle and saying, I hope that there's a machine to machine interface. I hope that it makes us have better conversations. But we also have to recognize that if the technology gets really great, our customers are going to have access to the same stuff that we're going to have access to, and it's going to fundamentally change the relationship. How fast? I don't know, but I'm already seeing smarter conversations during a sales process and people wanting like an AI native accountant. I don't know what you're seeing.
No, yeah, I mean, I've done tons of workshops with accountants where we talk about like, how to improve the communications with your clients and stuff. And one of the biggest challenges is they can't get past scope and how many bank accounts and how many bank statements and how many credit cards and, do you use PayPal, yes or no? And I think part of it is because the technology is not there. The technology where we can just do machine to machine is not there. And then we know there's a lot of human intervention that goes through, getting data from one system into the other. So we're so focused still on the volume of the work because we know that's going to take a chunk of our time. But, what if, this future where automation gets done, or like, I'll take it back. This future where we are 100% confident that no matter what people throw at us when it comes to the technical scope, the data flow scope, we're like, okay, I'm going to be able to build an automation for that. It's going to cost me $500, whatever. So imagine that you looked at every single client knowing that all the data movement stuff is going to cost you $500. Now you're past all the uncertainty of like how much human time I have to spend on like crunching numbers. And then now your conversation with your client is so much more elevated, talking about, okay, what are your dreams, desires? Where do you want to be? What's your purpose in life? You know, where do you picture your business being next year? And then accountants elevate themselves into a much, human-like, purpose-driven, aspirational conversation, and we're sort of beyond the data entry stuff. So I am with you that I want that machine-to-machine world to come sooner rather than later. And again, another plug for Automation Town. Definitely join. I'll put a link in the description. Join Automation Town, because what Chad is doing and all his colleagues, my colleagues, are doing is really, really incredible. So we've covered 2 bullet points out of the 10 bullet points we talked about covering for this conversation.
We did it.
Yes.
We did
It took us 45 minutes to get there. And nice. I liked, because now that I realize that we're close friends, I have met 4 times, I like this type of conversations. I like this type of conversations because I think they're more enriching than the technology stuff. But let's go back to the practical.
Sure.
ChatGPT 5. Okay. Are you excited about it? Are you more on the side that you're underwhelmed about it? What about ChatGPT 5?
I look at it through different lenses. So through the lens of the general public, incredibly happy, because it's the first time that some of the people that are using AI are seeing access to reasoning models without having to click extra buttons to get there. Super happy for them. In the mid-range, call it the 80% of the rest of the world, I think it is 50-50, because people have expectations of what was there before, and some of it's missing, some of it's better, and they don't necessarily know how to fix it. They can just complain, right? Which is there. Then you've got the 20% of the nerdy nerds who have already turned off the ChatGPT 5 thinking and just went back to 03 Pro, right? Or they're using GPT-5 Pro or something like that, and only using thinking.
Which is, by the way, it's worth mentioning that when ChatGPT came out, they removed the whole concept of choosing the model, and they went to auto selection. And this is like a huge thing. Like ChatGPT is using a deep thinking model that's super quick to read the prompt and decide which model to use. I mean, that's kind of an agent, as a matter of fact. That's like an actually useful agent anyway. But that was very revolutionary. But because ChatGPT is an incremental improvement, let's just say 20%, and 20% improvement over what ChatGPT was already, it's incredible. I mean, leaps and bounds, to improve 20% in speed and accuracy, all that stuff in a year. But I think, like you're saying, the super nerds were expecting AGI. They're expecting a robot to come out of the computer and just like wash your dishes and stuff. And it's just a chatbot. There's physical limitations, and quite frankly, creative limitation. I can't even think of something else a chatbot can do. And whatever they come up with next is going to be something we can't think about. And we're like, oh, of course it could do that. But it never occurred to us that a chatbot can do that. But people have these really crazy expectations. I'm personally using ChatGPT every day. I've been using it since it came out. I love ChatGPT 5. I am not turning off ChatGPT 5 and going backwards. But it's interesting. That when they first came out, they turned that off, and the uproar from the community was so big that now there's a little place you can go in ChatGPT and turn on the ability to go backwards, which is very weird for technology to say, oh, no, just give me the old version. But when I think of accountants do that all the time. Like, QuickBooks came up with the new UI. I don't know if you have seen it. Yeah. Like, everybody's trying to figure out how to go back to the old one. And they came up with a new banking screen, and they're trying to go back to the old one. And there's some legitimate reasons to do that. But like, our community is like so that type of people where I just want to go back to the old way.
They sure are. But what's kind of nice too is they also increased the limit for the really expensive thinking stuff for the $20 plans to 3,000 messages a week. But when they launched, it was only like 300 messages.
Yeah.
So like part of the uproar, I think they could have avoided if they just defaulted more of the conversations to thinking. But compute is compute, and the environment's the environment.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you a practical application of why that matters. Okay. So for example, I do a lot of vibe coding, which means I pretend to be a software developer in front of ChatGPT. And I give it a couple of QuickBooks screens, and I say, hey, the one I was working on last night, I'm almost done with it, by the way, is, there was somebody in Facebook complaining that you couldn't sort the reconcile screen by memo. weirdly enough, like typical QuickBooks, they do very oddly behave like QuickBooks always does 80% logic. They say, look, 80% we're going to use human logic and 20% we're going to have monkeys throw things at the dartboard and we'll pick whatever lands. Okay. So they basically have the ability to sort by date, by name, by account, by amount, but not by memo. No, nobody can explain why, right? So have somebody like just ranting off in Facebook or like, this is horrible. This is, this is counterproductive. So I went to ChatGPT. I gave it a screenshot of the reconcile screen. I took a copy of the HTML. I put it in ChatGPT and I say, hey, this thing is not sorting by memo. Why? So then if I use the thinking model, it almost like in its mind simulates that website running in its mind, and it goes, okay, I think the problem is that they left out this code or this code from the HTML. Or the problem could also be that the backend sorting system, doesn't respond to any, call to sort by this. Okay, here's some proposed solutions. And then I say, okay, and I just keep it with the thinking model and go, okay, if you were to give me a proposal that wouldn't break the page, of a script I could run to change this, and then every single time I do that, that's a message. And I'm doing this, every single day as I'm developing different ideas for Right Tool. And I can get to 300 really, really quick. So for me, it's super practical that for the same $20 a month, I get to use high thinking so it can code for me. And then it gives me the code. And then I plug it into the browser. And then once I see it works and I test it with multiple client files, I'm like, good to go. I send it to my developers and plug it into Right Tool. I'm an accountant that doesn't know any code, right? And I can do this. I can solve real world problems. Well, problems that shouldn't exist in the first place, a different side conversation. But I can solve real world problems, that accountants have that can really enhance their lives. And I'm putting videos out there showing people how to do that. And the fact that we get this for $20 a month, it should be mind blowing for people. So like having thinking, which gives you really high quality coding, and 3,000 messages per week or per month or whatever it is, it's kind of a game changer. But a lot of people don't see it because it's just an incremental change to what they're used to seeing.
What else would you like to cover before we head off for the day?
ChatGPT added project-based memory. So maybe talk about memory prior to project-based memory, why project-based memory, it's a really big deal. And then maybe go through and talk about how all the other apps are adding memory too. And we're going to have a homogeneous category of LLMs that all do the same thing.
Okay, let's keep it even shorter. Prior to August 1st, 2025, Claude and Copilot didn't really have great memory, and ChatGPT did. They allowed projects to sort of evolve based off of your conversations, but they didn't have what was called project-based memory. Project-based memory means that you can limit a project inside of ChatGPT, which is different than a custom GPT, to only use the history and preferences of that project when working with something. So it means that if in one message you say, I prefer plain text for all my responses, hopefully the next time you go and make an entry into that chat, it'll remember that your output will be plain text. Claude and Anthropic released theirs recently. In August, I think, roughly, and might have been late July, early August, something. And that was great for them because now they have more memory and they can recall posts. But what they did was they made you ask. So it's not on by default. You have to turn it on and then you have to say, oh, and by the way, what did I say about that? And then it'll go out and look. So a little bit of a different logic than the way OpenAI does it.
Yeah.
And then just recently, within the last 24, 48 hours, Copilot with Microsoft introduced custom instructions and memory to be able to use that. Can you imagine? OpenAI's had this for a year and a bit. Claude just got it. Now Microsoft does. We're all coming up to this place where our expectations are being raised on what a model should have and what an interaction should have, which is great. But that's where we are. That's where we're at now.
How much more time do you have? I want to know how much detail we should go into.
I have very little time because I have another call starting very soon. Sorry.
Okay. All right. No problem. So thank you for that. I want to talk about something that interests you, which is competition to QuickBooks and Xero and Intuit Enterprise Suite and Sage and like competition to like the people, the software companies that have been there for a very long time, and that nothing seems to move them. They have their specific positioning. Obviously, QuickBooks always being the big elephant in the room. That has specific positioning, and now we have all these sort of AI first companies that are getting tons of funding. And you mentioned Campfire. You had a client with Campfire. What are you seeing in the ERP world?
Mm, Again, this is a great question for Chris and all the other. I know even Taylor Hartman works with NetSuite and all these things. There's a lot of great accountants working in that realm that can answer better than I can. All I can say is, as a longtime QuickBooks or Zero and QuickBooks user, I am excited that someone is approaching this space just like Zero did, right? 2008, 2012, like great. I'm excited for it. The I think the news is that Rillet just announced another $75 million from Andreessen Horowitz and Oak and all these other ones, just like 10 weeks after their Series A. So there's tons of money getting putting into these sort of AI first things. Campfire is like, I'm so excited for Campfire. I can't wait to offer Campfire to our customers because I believe in how they're approaching it. And I think long term, data is data, and monopolies will be convenient, but they may not be the right option all the time. So I think as accountants, we should broaden our horizons around what we are actually selling. And when we get really clear on that, it's probably not QuickBooks services.
Yep. So you're recommending Rillet, Rillet, and you're recommending people to look at it, not necessarily
Oh
like
yeah,
switch to
I would
QuickBooks
not just
tomorrow.
yeah,
Yeah.
no
Yeah. Yeah.
recommendation here. Just get familiar with what they're
Yeah.
doing, how
Familiar
they're
with Rillet
approaching it. Yeah.
and Campfire.
Yep.
Okay. And you also want to mention in the sort of startup world, you may have already seen companies like Puzzle and Digits, creating this AI first. Again, maybe if we have more time, I could just rant about why is it so important for these companies to advertise it as AI first. Like accounting is such a close science, and it's so like if you think about how simple it is to build a profit and loss, like procedurally, like using logic. It's actually a very simple thing. Like accountants do this in their sleep, when they've done it for 20 years. And there's very little variability, and it's designed for that so you can compare financial statements across multiple companies. So you really don't need AI to do this. And this is kind of like where I think some of these companies are getting it wrong, where they're thinking that AI is completely necessary to build up to do transaction categorization and stuff like that. Um, and I think that you should be using AI for other things, like automate the stupid things, right? Like you don't have to automate the debits and the credits. We got a process for that. It works really well. Automate, like you said, like creating the folder and moving the document to this folder, and automate the manual drag and dropping and responding to emails and opening an email and forwarding an email and copy and pasting. That's the stuff that needs to be automated. Like I think when they start automating accounting and it gets it wrong, accountants are completely against automation, unfortunately, and they're tainting, automation, like AI and automate workflow automation and AI agency are two separate things. Okay, like you mentioned, Zapier, Make, and N8N. None of these were built with AI. They were built with workflows. They say, look, when this step happens, go to the next step. Pull the data from this database. And if this data confirms with this, go to the next step. If it doesn't, let's go to the side. There's a whole nother logic. What happens when this data doesn't match? Create a new customer. Boom, 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 boom. Right. So like we as accounting professionals and some of the IT people working in accounting, we understand how these workflows work, and we can build them into systems like this, and we can automate really well. I think the problem is that the AI and the agency is giving a bad brand to automation, because even the automation companies like Zapier, Make, and N8 are also toying with the concept of agency and AI, and I think that's muddling the water a little bit. Maybe we can wrap it up with that. What is your take on that?
Super simple. I think the market will speak for itself over time from both a customer expectation perspective, the tools that are available, how accountants like to work. And just like there are really forward thinking and technical and customer first types accountants that exist today, there's a whole bunch that aren't. And the world's still spinning. So it's cool. It'll move. Excited to see where it goes. And maybe we can chat about some more stuff in 3 months.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chad. Again, if you're watching this, you watched the whole hour. Awesome. Join Automation Town. It's automationtown.io, correct?
Yeah, correct. 39
Automationtown.io.
bucks a month.
$39 a month. The best community of accounting pros and accounting adjacent people doing automations and blowing people's minds with, how they're taking a very complex process, simplifying it within a couple hours and freeing us to have better, higher quality conversations with our clients about philosophy and life and traveling the world instead of talking about debits and credits and how many bank statements and credit card statements, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you, Chad. I'll see you in a quarter.
Thanks, Hector. Looking forward to it.
Bye.